County Board of Education will now come to order. We'll stand with pledge of allegiance. On the side. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's been an entire year since we've been together. Hopefully we'll get through this without any major hurdles. First item on the agenda is point of prize. Dr. Becker.
Yes, I'd like to welcome Chief Communications Officer Anthony Johnson to announce tonight's points of pride.
Good evening, Board. Tonight, I am excited to honor two Rossview High School students who made perfect scores on their ACT exams. The perfect composite score is a 36. This score is an average of all 4 section scores for English, math, reading, and science. Getting a perfect score on the ACT is very rare. Out of the nearly 2 million students who take the ACT across America, only 0.3% of students earn a perfect score. For context, the average ACT score in Tennessee is a 19.1, CMCSS just slightly above that, which is around 17 points lower than the perfect score they achieved. As you can imagine, achieving this rare perfect score makes students very competitive for scholarships and college admissions. I will now call both Rossview High School students up along with their principal, Dr. Sanders. So if Logan Graff could join us up front, as well as Arnav Sakrani, and their principal, Dr. Megan Sanders. Join us right up here, Board Member Mr. Mayberry. Congratulations, Logan. And I just want to also mention in the audience, we have Michael Graff, who is Logan's brother, who 2 years ago also was one of the 0.3% who achieved a perfect ACT score. So I think we should give a round of applause for the Graff. Concludes this evening's point of prize.
Thank you. Consent agenda. Motion for approval of consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Consent agenda. Is there a second?
I second.
Second, Mr. Mayberry. Any discussion on consent agenda? All those in favor? Passes 7-0. Next item is policy monitoring.
Yes, Board, please find in your board packet information on Executive Limitation 2, Communication with the Public. This executive limitation has 3 compliance expectations to ensure the Director of Schools adequately informs the public about the condition and direction of the district. A number of feedback opportunities have continued this year with stakeholder and advisory groups. Senior leadership team members lead these communication groups and provide information requested by the group's constituency. Also, the district website offers several ways in which feedback may be provided using the continuous improvement process. In partnership with Upbeat, a robust survey was dispatched to all school-based employees with around an 80% response rate. Parents were surveyed in the fall, and another will go out in the spring, as well as an all-employee survey. Students in grades 6 through 12 were also surveyed. Additionally, the district's strategic work is presented to all stakeholder groups. Finally, the financial state of the district is audited annually and quarterly reports are provided to the board and county commission. This is executive limitation 2.
Is there a motion to accept this report? One from Mr. Garland to accept the report, second from Mr. Patterson. Any discussion? All in favor? Passes 7-0. Next item, school year calendar.
Board, you will find in your board packet information executive limitation 9, school year calendar. This executive limitation has 3 compliance expectations to ensure the Director of Schools prepares a district calendar, school calendar, that best meets the instructional needs of students. The calendar for school year 2024-25 reflects the requirements outlined. Additionally, the representative stakeholder group used the same guidelines as were reviewed and discussed by all focus groups last year to develop the 24-25 calendar. Adjustments to the 23-24 school year calendars will be made and brought to the board should legislative changes arise. This concludes executive limitation 9.
Need a motion to approve the, so moved Ms. Pace. Is there a second? Mr. Patterson, any discussion? All in favor? Passes 7-0. Next item of reports.
Board, I'm excited to welcome Chief Operations Officer Norm Brumbley to present to you the work that is being done on Goal 9. As you know, one of our major areas of focus this year is related to not only bus driver recruitment, but also retention. And we're excited to share some of the latest data.
Good evening, Board. It's my honor to present to you tonight strategic goal number 9. So the Operations Department has 2 strategic goals. One is addressing school capacities. We've looked at that. And the second one is improving transportation services. Specifically, that is improving bus driver recruitment and retention to enhance student transportation services. So tonight we will look at fleet status update. We will look at some strategic recruiting efforts and the return on those efforts. We'll look at some enhanced organizational efficiencies through collaboration across departments for retention, and we'll see some technology solutions that have an enhanced efficiency and accountability for the district. So we'll start with status. These numbers change daily, but currently we have 230 active bus drivers with CDLs and P&S endorsements. Our people are what drive us, literally. Currently, in our driver training status, we have 3 candidates pending background check, and we have 12 currently training on the road that we are expecting to be driving a school bus in the next few weeks. Under routes, we operate 192 regular routes. 48 of them are what we call double run routes, and 51 special needs routes for a total of 243 routes. The routes are broken down as 1 runners, those are buses that travel up to 90 minutes per day. 2 runners, those are buses that will possibly do an elementary and then follow that with a middle and high route. We have 3 runners, those are buses that will do an early elementary, a late elementary, and then a middle and high route. And then we have 4 runners. Those are buses that are used primarily for TCAT services and can't really be used to sub for any other routes. But that's how we're broken down. Currently, there are 13 open routes, not including people calling out sick, leaves of absence, or other types of leave. What's important here is that this is roughly half of what we showed last year. And I see Mr. Griffey doing the math over there. We have 13 in training we have 13 openings and 15 in training. We're not there yet, but we do have reason to be excited. So staffing remains our challenge. Every day there are still up to 700 stops that we struggle to service AM and PM. This does not include those 48 double runs. So those are the routes that are designed to start earlier to pick up middle school students and drop them off 15 minutes before the normal drop time. And then they go back out and pick up another load of high school students and bring those students back by the 7:15 a.m. start time. And then in the afternoon, they reverse that and start with the high school and then pick up middle schools next. If we didn't have those double runs, then there would actually be 61 open routes instead of 13, so they help us overcome the shortages. While other districts in Tennessee will cancel buses, and I talked to a superintendent just last week who was discussing how occasionally when they're short drivers, they have to notify parents that transportation is not available that day because they're short. CMCSS has taken action to continue offering 100% service at less than 100% staffing because we're not going to tell a student that a bus is not coming. So in addition to the double runs, drivers with short routes close to school will often run multiple routes when needed. Sometimes we'll merge students from 2 buses onto 1 bus when attendance allows us to cover for call-outs. And we have 26 office staff and 13 mechanics who are all certified to drive. So that's 39 additional drivers in a pinch that we will ask to drive. And this is how we keep our buses rolling. There may be delays, but we will not cancel. So let's talk about recruiting. These are the processes that we're using to improve recruiting. You've seen many of these before. We do community recruitment. This week, actually tomorrow, we have a Fort Campbell job fair that we'll be attending. We continue to offer sign-on bonuses of $1,000 for new drivers. I think we're up to 59 at this point. 59 new drivers took us up on that. We offer training opportunities for CMCSS teachers and others. We have 3 CMCSS staff members at schools that are driving buses. We're working to improve partnerships with other outside agencies. You've seen our banners placed on buses in strategic locations. Those banners have been updated this week. We're working with the communication department on other advertising campaigns. We hired a training coordinator to facilitate some new initiatives. And this year, the biggest new initiative was our new paid driver training program. This new training program with an incentive is the result of a multi-departmental collaboration. So I can't thank those folks enough for working with us to put this together because it really has made a difference. This has allowed us to change the way we recruit and keep trainees. So let's look at that paid training program. So for context, in the past, our traditional method had us taking applications. We would do interviews, we'd do background checks, and then we would train for an average of 10 to 16 weeks for the candidates to get their CDLs. It's important to know that this was based on the driver's schedule, and the driver was driving. So this caused the timeline to extend some. And at the end of the 10 to 16 weeks, they were paid $275 for their time to learn the skills required for a CDL. And then they were assigned a bus and they started to drive for us. The new and improved paid training program began on July 1st of this year. And now, once accepted, trainees are hired and paid at a rate of $10 per hour while training. They also learn student management skills as an aide assigned to the bus that they will be assigned to once they receive their CDL. This helps in two ways. Once they pass the training course and receive their CDL, then they will start driving at an hourly rate of $19.59 an hour. And they know the students that they will be serving. This training program lasts for 7 weeks. So this program has shortened our training cycle by up to 9 weeks and now provides incentive to our candidates to complete their course. These are the results. In the blue on the left-hand side is our net hires for the entire 21-22 school year. On the right, the light blue is our net hires for the first 6 months of this school year. You can see that the return is almost the same as our entire year the previous year. We also offer the traditional method for those with part-time jobs and for CMCSS employees as well. So you can see that this program has had a significant impact on our strategic work. And so once again, many thanks to the folks sitting over there who supported us and cooperated with us to put this together, because it has made a difference. Now let's talk about retention. This is a year-on-year comparison of retention data. The first thing you may notice is that green bar, that is our recruiting. So the first half of this year has already exceeded our entire recruiting effort for the entire year for the past 3 years. So that's recruiting. But it's also important to look at the other lines as well. So those other lines represent resignations, terminations, retirements, and transfers. What you see there is that over the next 6 months, our data may double. But it is still possible that we may have increased retention by as much as 60% over last year. That's huge. So what happened? You know what we've been working on to address the critical driver shortage since the last time we spoke. So we have the driver recognition placards. We have teacher monitors available to assist with student management. We have 2-hour positions available for drivers to receive full-time pay. We have a referral bonus. We have stipends for extra routes. The $10 per route made a difference last year when we were asking drivers to do twice the work for the same pay. We have a performance bonus for attendance, safety, and performance. And last year we did an off-cycle market analysis for pay. The market analysis was beneficial. Our drivers went from 5 hours to 6 hours per day. The market analysis moved them from $16.27 to $18.66. You supported us in the 5% increase for classified employees. This moved the pay to $19.59, which is competitive in the market. We also have an on-cycle market analysis underway this year, and we're hopeful we may see some movement as well. We also leverage technology to improve communication to all of our transportation sites, and it allows us to recognize and welcome our new drivers to the team so that the drivers with experience can bring them on board and teach them the skills that they've acquired over the years. We have provided some professional learning opportunities. Our drivers received professional training from the SEL staff just last week in verbal judo, which I know sounds aggressive, but actually it's a method that our drivers can use now as tools to work with challenging students, and it was beneficial. And we also hired a student safety and behavior specialist, so the transportation safety and discipline coordinator. Let's look at some more of that. This is our separation data from the previous year. So we made it a point last year to personally reach out and contact each driver that left us and get their feedback. Of all of the drivers who left us last year, these are the reasons given. The data tells us that almost a quarter of the drivers left us last year for increased pay opportunities. The next highest loss, 16%, was due to the stress incurred from student behavior. And the third, at 14%, was retirement. That one we thought if we could address the other two, we might convince people not to use that option. These three together represented 54% of our losses in staffing last year. So our first priority was the pay, and you took care of that last year. This year, we looked at student conduct. We disaggregated over 3,000 conduct reports. And you have to picture in your mind boxes of paper copies of discipline referrals, 3,000 of them. We asked our staff to go through each one and log every single piece of data into a database. So we knew the time, we knew where it occurred, we knew what school it occurred, we knew what bus it was, we knew the administrator who worked it, we knew how long it took for that to be worked. We collected all the data that we could look at, and we crunched that data and identified various discrepancies in practices, in enforcement, and in processing of the discipline referrals themselves. We collaborated with our continuous improvement staff who actually did an audit of those processes, and they identified actionable areas for us to improve our performance by bridging the processes that are done by administrators and bus drivers, so we could connect the dots because we had the data and we could find the places that we had control over that we could change. So we hired a student transportation safety and discipline coordinator. We reallocated existing positions, so we were able to, at no cost to the district, create this position. And he is responsible for monitoring bus conduct reports and looking for trends that may help the drivers. He looks for trends that also may help the supervisors and administrators. He provides input for training opportunities for our drivers. He analyzes the data and manages corrective actions for repeat offenders. One of the things we found when we looked at the data was that a full third of those 1,000 discipline referrals on buses were the same 97 students. So 0.2% of our total school population was causing a third of the stress on our drivers. So once we knew that, we knew we had to work with the SEL department. That's the Social and Emotional Learning Department, headed by Matt Slight. And Matt Slight jumped in with both feet. And he is providing those professional learning opportunities for our drivers. He is also bridging some communication gaps that we identified, and he's working with administrators as well so that they better understand what the drivers are going through. So let's look at more data. So we can feel the difference now. Last year, we were at 54% staffing. We almost had a 50% deficit. This August, when we started school, we were a little bit better. We were at about 59% staffing. But last month, we were at 71% staffing. We are optimistic about the trajectory of our recruiting and retention efforts. Our plan is to fill those 13 open routes as quickly as possible. Then our next focus is on the double runs, so that's the area in gray. And then we would like to hire 10 additional sub positions to give us the flexibility to cover those daily and those change daily openings. So 311 is that's our magic number. And so we're still about 73 drivers short of being whole. but we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we haven't lost a driver for behavior this year. So let's look at some of the enhancements that we've made to improve efficiency and effectiveness. So we really needed to improve communication and the response time of our dispatchers. So we distributed the responsibilities of our dispatcher. What's important to know here is that in 1980, which is when I have data for, CMCSS had 14,000 students. The transportation department operated the fleet with one dispatcher. That dispatcher was located at the CMCSS operations complex out in Sango. In 2022, CMCSS has 38,000 students. Last year, the transportation dispatcher was still managing the fleet. There was one transportation dispatcher still managing the fleet. So we have one person supporting all 300 dispersed vehicles throughout this county. We have one person listening to 6 busy channels of communication. This year, we opened a second dispatch center. So now we have one for the north side of the county and the south side of the county. We have 2 people now supporting 150 vehicles each, and each one is now monitoring 3 channels each. In the words of one of the dispatchers, this has made the dispatch center far more manageable and efficient in supporting the drivers and the schools, and that was our goal. So you can feel that when you walk into the dispatch center, you can feel the difference. Another enhancement that you've heard me talk about in the past is the RFID radio frequency identification card system. We began our pilot in 21-22, and we piloted it at the West Creek and the Cumberland Heights campus. At the beginning of the year, we did experience some challenges. There were some legislative changes to the formatting of student IDs, so we had to resubmit our swipe cards for reprinting. And then we had some software integration hurdles to overcome with coding, mainly at the elementary school. But we're working through those challenges. We're printing the updated student ID cards, and we anticipate being operational again in February. So we do have some use cases that we've identified. And so just to share with you, last week we had a parent call law enforcement because her child did not come home from the bus. So at about 3:50, we received a call. We called the school. The school personnel got involved. They pulled up the video from the school to try to see where that child left. We sent dispatch out to the bus to retrieve the bus video. This is the common practice for us to find a child that didn't get on the bus. And in this case, that's what happened. The child rode in the morning, and then in the afternoon went with some friends somewhere else and just forgot to tell mom. And it took about 5.5 hours for us to identify that, and then actually, so law enforcement and the parent knew where to look. Contrast that with something that happened at West Creek last year with RFID. The same thing happened, but it took us 48 minutes to identify that the child swiped on in the morning, did not swipe off in the afternoon. So we immediately knew where to look. So that's the difference that the RFID cards can make. Another initiative that we are very excited about, we're preparing a phone app for bus alerts using geofencing. So this is real-time bus location for parents to view the status of their child's bus. We're piloting this with a small test group to make sure that everything is fully functional before we roll it out. And we intend to roll this out to the district in the spring of this year. We're very excited about this app because this is going to improve our communication with stakeholders across the district. So that sums up our efforts for improving transportation services across the district. Are there any questions?
I just want to say this, your efforts this year have been amazing. So I'm just really I'm sure everybody on the board would say this. Good job. I mean, this is great.
I appreciate that, sir, but it is a team effort.
Yes.
And we're all in this together, and it's because you've empowered the folks over there to work together to make that happen.
Yes. The retention, everything here is amazing. Thanks, sir.
I'd like to echo that also, well spoken. But could you tell me what is the general reason that the bus drivers, I think about 7% are terminated every year? Is there a thread going through there why they're terminated?
Yeah, for various reasons, and for HR reasons, I can't discuss that too much, but let's just say we have very, very high standards for our drivers because student safety is our #1 priority.
And we appreciate that.
Also, Norm, you said that there's a $1,000 referral on this.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that to other bus drivers?
So that's for current bus drivers. So for our bus drivers, if they know of other people that may be interested in being a bus driver, we encourage them to talk about it and talk about the benefits and talk about the engagement and talk about how you can, if you're looking for something to do that's, and you want to serve your community, there's few better options in our town.
What are the age limits on both ends?
Well, I think the age limit on the upper end is determined by, once again, HR. However, there is a 25-year-old age limit on the lower end. So that does limit our recruiting ability somewhat.
The software that you generated, are we doing that ourselves or we buying it?
So we're, the two pieces of software that I showed here are packages, so, but they do integrate with our existing software, and our technology department is making that happen.
I do want to say one thing. I actually got to tour the Madison Street facility last year with leadership CMCSS, and I got to see that command center with all the dots. And I asked the question, why do we have a bus in Nashville? And you told me we transfer students from the School of the Blind, which I thought was amazing. I had no idea. But to see that in action, to now sit in 2 different locations, that's huge, because
Absolutely.
that was fun watching that the employee there.
Fun is a nice way to describe it.
Yes.
I think you should charge a fee. I'm sure the other school districts around are asking you why you're being so successful.
We did have a great collaborative meeting, I don't know if you're gonna speak on that, with some other school districts recently, and some ideas were shared.
Relay some of the other comments about applauding the job that's being done by you and your staff to make things better. One question, and you probably don't know the answer to this, but I'd like maybe to research it some, and I don't know if anything you can do with what you're doing to fix it. But is there been any research done on the 48 double routes? The second route, the first route, I don't see the possible impact, get to school 15 minutes early. But I don't know if any of y'all are driving the traffic, but I know there's a strong chance that those second routes are going to be getting school late. And I wonder how many of those students are negatively impacted in maybe in getting the breakfast and getting to the class on time, and if there has been any noticeable impact on their grades or where they're falling short if they are because of lack of time that we can't get them there. And I don't know how you do what you do. I'm not criticizing at all. Is there a factor that we are looking at there to see what the impact is to try to help overcome
So I can't answer the question about if there's a measurable correlation between the delivery time and the student's grades. But what I can say is that early on in the year, and you know at the beginning of the year, it's often chaotic. The first month of school, just traffic-wise in general. But we did get some feedback from the instruction department that there was some lost instruction time at some of our schools. So we went out with the level directors to the schools, and we literally took stopwatches and timed the arrival of the buses. Mr. Ron Garner, our transportation manager, pulled the bus data, so he started tracking the arrival times of those buses. He adjusted the schedules of those buses to make sure that they fell within the 15-minute window that's allotted for delivery. The next thing we did was look at what happens once those students are delivered. And then you mentioned the breakfast. So they get off the bus and then they all go into the cafeteria and then they go to class, still within that 15-minute window. So then I took the child nutrition department out there, once again with stopwatches, and we measured the time it took for one student to go through the line. We measured the average checkouts per register. And then once we had all that data, we made adjustments in the cafeteria. So we added checkouts at some of the schools. And we changed personnel around a little bit, maybe added some people here and there, and we were able to cut the average time for the breakfast, that whole process, by 5 to 10 minutes. So we did hear the feedback from the instructional department, and we, towards the beginning of the year, we did put a lot of effort into making that a lot more efficient to minimize that lost instruction time.
And again, I don't know how you're doing what you're doing with the people you have, so I'm sure it wasn't
It's a great team, sir.
plugging there. I just wanted to see if it was, didn't measure or try to decide what impact it's having. But thank you for that report.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Rickett, if I could have one other question. If, I don't know what it would take, I am more courteous than I've ever been with school bus drivers, you know, if they're trying to get out on the main thoroughfare or whatever. I don't know how we could promote as far as communication or with the press or whatever, but any time that we can let them get out safely, after they run around, like on Warfield Boulevard, a lot of times it's just piled up and they're coming out of those subdivisions there. And of course, some people will let them out, and if I'm available, I'm going to let them out. And it just expedites their route. And any way we can promote this, then I think would be great. Just again, it's common courtesy, but these drivers have it tough anyway, and it just makes it easier. We can get out when we go to that second route. And do we have our own records?
Yes, sir.
To pull our vehicles in if we need them. How many do we have?
We have one wrecker, and that wrecker services our buses and then also county emergency vehicles. So if you see a county emergency vehicle on a wrecker, it's probably ours.
Well, thanks for all your team does.
Thank you, sir.
Something that Mr. Griffey said, I mean,
Mr. Nelson had something. Oh, I'm sorry.
So, that's a great use of data, and not a lot of people can do that. The one thing I was just curious about, how about, those bus drivers who support, like, sporting events, basketball, football? How does that figure into, the routes and time and all that?
Well, when we were short, we couldn't. We were able to source some additional vans for smaller groups to be able to take, so that it wouldn't take away our drivers. We had to alter our times, so we can't take a high school sports team out of county until we've taken all the elementary school students home that are in county. So we don't want to leave elementary school students sitting for any length of period. So it's kind of, we've worked with the activities coordinator, and we've really made some strides. We're getting better at that, but that's why we need to fill those 13 slots and the additional subs, because once we get those 10 extra subs, then we will be able to cover those elementary school students and send the bus out of county for athletic events.
We have some coaches for CDLs as well.
Yes, sir.
That transferred. So question off of what Mr. Griffey said there, with high school students and their GPAs being obviously very important going towards college, is there a way, or have you been able to prioritize getting them to school opposed to lesser grades on the routes, so that their grades, their classes are not affected as much?
Yeah, we've really put a lot of effort into just getting all the kids within that 15-minute window. If we can deliver all the students in that 15-minute window, then that's when the teachers can do what they do. So I don't know if we have any data that differentiates that I could answer that question with, but I do know that that 15-minute window is crucial for us.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it very much, and job you all.
Thank you.
Next item, approval review committee for submitting charter applications.
Yes, board, in your packet, you received a list of charter review committee members. I want to be very transparent that there has been an adjustment in that list. A board member inquired about having 2 board members instead of 1 on the CMCSS Charter Review Committee. Last year, based on an example from another district which we had received and reviewed the charter school applications previously, CMCSS developed a policy to form a review committee of several educational and content experts, parent and community members, and 1 board member who was not serving on any other committees. Originally, we intended to submit a recommended list of committee members for your review and approval this evening based on this list. To ensure it was permitted to have 2 board members on the committee, should the board make that decision, we contacted our charter school point of contact at the State Board of Education, Allie Gaffey-Reed, Director of Engagement and Accountability. Ms. Reed conveyed that it is not recommended to have any board members on the Charter Review Committee. She stated the function of the committee is to thoroughly review charter applications and provide a recommendation to board members who ultimately will vote to approve or deny. Board members are provided with the same application materials provided to the Charter Review Committee and to the community at large. So board members are able to do their due diligence in addition to the review committee's recommendation. Based on the guidance from the State Board of Education to reduce this conflict, CMCSS will be revising its policies and has revised the Charter Review Committee list to exclude board members.
Any comments from board members?
Who is the board member presently representing? Who is?
Ms. Carol Berry had been on the list and represented last year.
So,
Sorry, you go ahead.
So basically, whoa, lost my mind. So basically, the state recommends that there's no board member on this particular committee, on the charter revision.
Correct. The idea is that the committee is to review and provide a recommendation. So their analysis is it didn't make sense to have someone ultimately making a recommendation to the board, and they would also be voting as part of that board.
So do we need to change ours, or?
So there is an updated list in your packet.
so I guess my question, I guess to the other board members here, what everyone thinks about this, my understanding is there are board members represented to some contacts I make to most of the other districts. They all pretty much had the same language, and they all pretty much had board members attached to committees. So I'm just kind of curious what everyone else thinks. I'm new here.
I didn't understand your question.
So this would be a change. We wouldn't have a board member. Last year we did, Ms. Berry. My understanding is most of the districts across the state do have a board member, and this is just a recommendation from the state. So we as a board can make a decision either way. I'm just kind of curious what you guys' thoughts are with this recommendation. You may can speak.
Personally, I think that we need to have someone on the board. I don't think that the state should have the privilege of telling us how we need to establish our board here in Clarksville, Montgomery County. We are the people who's actually going to be responsible for these schools, and we need to be there to find out why were certain people making certain recommendations. So as far as I'm concerned, I mean, it doesn't really matter, is that I think that we need to maintain a person on the board.
Mr. Chairman, just to get it, if a motion is proper, I go ahead and make a motion where we can maybe get a second and discuss it at that time. Would I be in order to do that?
I think it would be, yeah.
And then that way we can discuss it at that time. At this time, I would, my motion would be approval of a review committee for any submitted charter application.
Patterson.
I second.
Approve the committee, second from Mr. Nelson. And I'm assuming that you're voting to approve the committee that has been recommended by the director of staff. Okay. Now, is there any discussion on the motion? Motion is to approve. And the modification that's been made, Mr. Patterson, without board members, that which your motion is to approve, or to approve it as it first got it with the board members.
I'm sorry, as the list was presented to us. And again, I'm sure that if there are no board members on the committee, that we're still, if it's an open committee, we all seven could go and go to the committee and listen to the committee.
I want to clear up one thing. You're saying the list presented. Are you talking about the original list or the modified list that did not have a board member? Which one are you asking to be approved?
The list is on our agenda tonight.
The one with the board member listed.
Sir,
The one with the board member listed or the modified list?
modified.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the floor to approve the list with the modified. And a second, Mr. Nelson. That's what we're discussing. So any discussion on that?
I still think that we need to have a board member on that committee.
I think some early discussions that we had, going back to last year is that, the state dictating how we do our business here is not a good look. I think we should continue to have a board member on there, for the input from board member perspective.
Any other discussion? Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, I would think that, of course, we would be able to express our opinion once it's brought to us to either vote it down or vote it up. And we would have plenty of time and discussion for that.
Well, is there any more discussion on it? And the motion is on the floor to approve the committee as recommended by the director in the addendum that does not include a board member. So all in favor of that committee, would you raise your hand? All opposed? Think that it passes 4-3. Did I get that correct, count right? Motion passes 4-3. Next item. Student discipline appeal.
Thank you. Board, you have tonight on the agenda, a student discipline appeal matter. As always, I'll remind the board, we will not identify the student by name or by school. You have been provided with the packet of information which contains the record regarding the student and the appeal. And so what you have before you is policy dictates, if one of you chooses to do so, to make a motion to modify the student discipline, that would be appropriate. The motion would have to be seconded. Then you can discuss a modification. If you were to want to modify the discipline upwards, then you must grant the student a hearing. If you were going to modify it downward, you would not have to have a hearing. You could do that without a hearing. If there is no motion, then that is an affirmation of the district director's decision. So that is what is before you tonight. Are there any motions regarding the student appeal for tonight? All right. If there are no motions, then the matter is deferred to the director's decision, and that concludes that matter.
Next time, I want a clarification, it's redundant to what we just did, or is it worded incorrectly?
It is, you went ahead and voted.
Yeah, it is redundant.
You addressed it.
Next item, comments for Fort Campbell School Liaison Officer. Comments by CMCEA Representative. Stephanie Outlaw, making that presentation tonight.
It's not really a presentation, it's just comments.
Comments, I'm sorry.
So my name is Steffi Outlaw. I am the CMCEA CAC Chair. I know most of you, so it's really good to see you again, and I thank you for letting me address the board today. So it's January, new year, a time when we look to the year ahead of us and consider possibilities and set goals. Some of us even make resolutions to help us achieve these goals. Like you, the Clarksville-Montgomery County Education Association is resolved to make Clarksville-Montgomery County the best place for our students and educators. With the convening of the 113th Tennessee General Assembly on January 10th, we have the opportunity, the right, and the responsibility to engage our state senator and representative in important conversations about issues that directly impact our schools. State lawmakers will likely consider legislation related to school funding, including salaries and insurance, the evaluation system, collaborative conferencing, and school nurses. It's almost a certainty that there will be legislation filed regarding vouchers and charter schools, which will draw resources away from our district. And let's not forget the third grade retention law. That absolutely needs to be revisited. No one understands the needs of our students here in Clarksville-Montgomery County better than those of us here in the district, for no one is as vested as we are. CMCA is a willing partner in this advocacy work and is happy to discuss with you at any time how legislation considered in Nashville will be realistically and directly impact our school district. In the spirit of the new year, let us be resolved to work cooperatively toward our shared priority of making our community the best place in which to live, teach, and learn. And I look forward to working with each and every one of you throughout this year like we did last year. Thank you.
Thank you. PET representative. Comments from county commissioners. Much quiet tonight. Before I do comments from board members, I want to recognize Mr. Ronnie Glenn, state representative, newly elected, in our audience tonight. We appreciate your interest and hope to see you many more times. Comments from board members. Starting in our right.
Just glad to see Camilla back, on the county commission and the education committee. Good to see you. And I do want to thank everyone that has, all the schools that have recognized us as board members, we've gotten gifts, and I just thank you so much for thinking about us.
I have a question for our director. If this law as written for third grade retention is actually implemented this year, do we know about how many students will actually fall into that category, and would it require an additional school?
So it would not require an additional school. How it would work is we would provide summer school and we would provide after-school tutoring. We do have that exact number that we can get to you because the number I have in mind has not been filtered out, so I hate to give that number because there's students that would qualify for exemptions. For instance, students with characteristics of dyslexia identified as possible reading disabilities, students with IEPs, students who have already been retained. Those are all exempted out of that number, and that would have been last year's number. So the current students will take the third grade reading TCAP here in the spring, and that will actually be the data that we will pull from. So we don't have the exact number, but we do have an estimate of what that looks like based upon those students and their current screeners and reading abilities, and we are communicating that with parents all the time that their student may need additional support. I want to emphasize that no student will be retained. I want to repeat this. No student will be retained if the parent and the student are willing to meet the accommodations needed with summer school and the after-school tutoring and show some progress on the assessment. And so we are going to work with every single family to make sure that we are promoting our students and that they are able to read. So that is our goal.
I just want to make a comment. Sometimes students don't perform well on the test, but the teacher knows that student can actually perform and that student is prepared to go to fourth grade. Is there any consideration of the teacher's recommendation?
So that has been some of the conversation that we have actually had with legislators as well, when we're talking about that. But currently, as written, it is based primarily on that assessment. There are some waivers that are allowed, and it depends on the student performance. And so we will be communicating all that to parents, and as legislation, if legislation were to change, we'll be communicating that as well.
Mr. Grace, did you have comments? We got around you there.
No.
Mr. Patterson? Mr. Nutt? Comments by the director of school?
So good evening, board members. As you know, we had a little unexpected extended break for our students and school employees today, but I'm hopeful they enjoyed the beautiful weather and are looking forward to returning to school tomorrow, since we have learned the water transmission line has been repaired. This past Monday, I was honored to have spent some time at Burt Elementary School serving on a panel in remembrance of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It was an amazing town hall, and there are several people here in the audience who were there as well, with some locally elected officials discussing how we can all work together as a community to be better together. Finally, I want to recognize next week is School Board Appreciation Week. You all put in time and effort that is not typically recognized, and so I want to offer my sincere thank you to all of you. As every board member, for your tireless dedication serving our students here in Clarksville, Montgomery County School System. I look forward to continuing to see the school celebrate each of you next week. Mr. Griffey, this concludes my report for this evening.
Meeting's adjourned.